Hey guys, in this week's tip, we're going to continue to take a look at the various tool sets within the analysis menu in SMS Pro. This week, we're going to focus on batches. For those of you that use batches today, you know there are a ton of different ways and a ton of different opportunities to make use of batches within your store. For those that don't, if you just simply take a look at the options under the batch menu in SMS Pro, you can see there are a variety of ways that you can utilize batches. Things like future price changes, future sales, item updates down the road, bill backs, discounts, things like that. Most of the time, this type of information can be imported into SMS directly from your vendor partners. Alright, so let's take a look at some of these tools that we can use within SMS Pro to help us work with our batches. As you can see, I'm in SMS Pro and I'm in a main item cost view. To get there, I simply hit View, Item Cost, and this is the particular view that I like to see. Okay, so this first tool we're going to look at is called Batch Old and New. It's right here under the analysis menu, the first one in the batch section. When we hit it, it's going to open up a little window off to the right. We'll make it a little bit bigger so we can see it. Now basically what this is going to display for us is just a listing of some of the old batches when we pull up an item over here in the browser, and any new or future batches that are either ongoing or about to happen in the near term. So let's test this out. We're going to go over here to the search field and we're going to input an item that I know has some data in it. When we hit it, the typical item information is going to pop up, and you can see over here in our batch old and new window, we have an entry for the week that's set up here in our search criteria. To make this a bit more interesting, I'm going to expand the view a little bit by hitting the year button here. Now what this is going to do is show me all the available batches that happened this year, 2013, for this particular item in our browser. And you can see it divides them up into new batches, stuff that hasn't been executed yet, and then old batches, stuff that has either gone in the past, already been executed, or is ongoing right now. So let's look and see what this tool is actually showing us here. Well, for the new batches, it's just really telling us what's going to happen in a future event. We've got a sale batch coming up here where the sale price is going to be $17.99 for this item. It gives a description that's in our batch header, the start date and the end date, the batch ID that the system auto creates for us, and if we have multi-store, we can also limit it by store, or in our case here, we've got it for all our stores. And then the price level that's included here as well, number one. In the old batch down here, you can see it's just a historical record, same type of data. We're showing the price, the type, the description, start and end date, batch ID, and so on. So that's pretty good historical review, plus it gives you an idea of what's coming up in the very near term. So the next batch tool we want to take a look at is the Batch All Changes tool. You're probably familiar with this if you work with batches at all, because what this tool allows you to do is see what's happening to the various products that are in the browser and what the batch is doing to those products. Typically you wouldn't use it in this type of view, so we're going to go ahead and set this up. I'm going to go ahead and close all these windows, and I'm going to look at another predetermined view that I've called batches. And what this view does is it basically opens up all the available batches that I have ready to execute. You can see I've got a listing of some here. Now if we just highlight one of these and we go ahead and hit the execute button, the batch is then brought into the browser and I can see what items are affected within the batch. And it gives us a better idea of what the Batch All Changes window is over here to the right. Now what this window is showing us is what is happening to these items that are in the batch and what the batch is going to do to them. So what I'm going to do is focus only on this one batch. I'm going to hit the current batch only, and you can see my listing here is limited somewhat. And we can see that there's going to be a price change on this particular item starting June 2nd and running for about a week or so. If we scroll through the other items in the batch, you can see that this window over here, the Batch All Changes window, that updates as well, just like a lot of the other windows within SMS Pro. So you can see everything is updated. If I'm ready to execute the batch, all I have to do is hit execute, or I can edit it right here. Either way, I can also delete the batch, or I could filter it even further. Now, the reason why I went ahead and selected the current batch only is because we're working on this batch right here. So imagine if this was a listing of a couple hundred items that my vendor sent me for import, I would be able to easily go through and just look at the changes on this particular batch. If I'm interested in looking at all the batch changes for this item, all I have to do is unselect that little radio button, and you can see I've got a couple different batches for this one particular item, number 1, 2, 3. In fact, we've got a future TPR that's set up end of June. We've got a future sale price that is set up for the 2nd of June, and then we've got a general change down here to let us know that this item is going to be special order only. The real purpose of this tool is to make it a heck of a lot easier to determine what's going on with the products in the browser by batch before you execute. That's really what this tool does. And as a selfless plug, if you take a look at the Living Naturally ordering interface video that we just did recently, you'll see where we've got a couple thousand items in our browser that were done via an import, and we need to know what's going on with those items and what the batch is going to do. So this is where we use the batch all changes to determine what the sale prices are going to be, or cost changes, or whatever the heck the batch is going to do. We're able to see that before we execute. All right, moving right along. You can see I've changed screens on you again. I went back to that item cost view and I opened up our batch old and new window over here to the far right. We're going to take a look at the third tool in the analysis menu this week, which is batch movement. Now this tool is pretty cool because it's very similar to the movement windows that you see a lot of times when we're looking at item maintenance. What this is actually doing is it's showing the movement of items for a given batch right out here. It allows you to determine what the impact was of a cost change, a sale batch, whatever the heck it is that you're working on, probably going to be a TPR or a sales batch. It's going to let you see the impact of that and the item movement for just that particular batch period. So if we take a look at what we can do with this batch movement window, we can set it to the period, to the day, week, month, or year, or we can use our handy dandy little calendar as we always do to set it to a particular time frame that we want. Now the data that it's going to spit back at you, in the sale batch at least, is the pricing that we had during this particular start time for this particular batch. It's going to tell you the quantity sold, how much you got revenue-wise, the profit dollars right here. You can see we lost some money here, and yeah, this says markup, but that is actually the margin percentage right here. Now the really cool aspect about this is if you want to go back to that batch and look at all the items that were in that particular batch to see if maybe this was just a loss leader, well, you can do that by simply coming over to the batch ID URL, clicking it, and you'll see that within the browser everything updates just like you would think it would. So what that means is we've now brought back into the browser this old batch ID, a bunch of zeros and ending in 81, and now we can scroll through the items and notice out to the right there, just like in all the other SMS Pro tools, the data in the windows updates. So that now you have a great historical record of what is going on from your batch old and new window and the batch movement window, and in fact we can go through this entire old batch and look at any of these items. That's pretty powerful, and it's a great way to go back and review what you did a long time ago before you forgot. Alright, we are flying this week, and that's a beautiful thing. Now we're going to take a look at the last batch tool under the analysis menu in SMS Pro. So you can tell I changed the screen on you here a little bit, but that is because I want to take a look at a future batch that we got coming up. So I'm going to highlight this tip of the week flyer analysis number 2 batch. I'm going to go ahead and execute that, and the items that are in that batch show up right over here in our browser. So what we're going to look at now is a little tool we call Batch Flyer Analysis. So I'm going to go under the Analysis menu and hit Batch Flyer Analysis. And that's going to pop up a little window. I'm going to move it down here so we can take a good look at it. Let's review what this baby is going to do. So what we've got here is a little forecasting tool to help us manage and understand what could happen in a future sale event. You can see our future sale price is set to go on June 2nd and run through the 8th of June. We've got the 3 items that we've picked over here in our browser based on this Flyer Week Analysis number 2 over here that we selected. Now you can see basically what this is going to do is it's going to help us develop a forecast, or we can stick our finger in there and guess as well, and I'll show you that. But it's going to tell us what the sales would be based on the sale price, what they would be at regular price, the difference, and then also help us manage our markdown and see what the impact is on our margin dollars. Let's go through an example. Okay, so let's say we want to use all the data that our system captures, and we want it to help us generate a forecast based on this future sale price for our PLU item number 123. So when we hit this generate button, the system is going to go out here and do some whiz-bang calculations, and it's going to come back and say for past events that were similar to this, sale price events, you could expect to sell 40 of unit 123 within a weekly period. And oh, by the way, this is going to be your profit percentage based on when you do that. And if we look down here to summary, we can see we got a rolling total. So we can see what our revenue is at the sale price, what our revenue would have been at regular price, the difference in profit dollars, the difference in margin percentage, and then the markdown. So now we can better understand what would happen, at least based on the system calculation of similar price events for this particular item. Now let's take it one step further and compound it a little bit. Let's go ahead and generate a forecast for item number 2 and generate a forecast for item number 3. Those numbers populate here. It can give you a by item summary right here. Lets you know that based on similar pricing events in the past, you can expect to sell 304 of these strawberry twists within a week period and 221 of these multi-crunch frosted flakes within that same weekly period. And oh, by the way, The impact of this flyer at a summary level for all three items is right down here. You can see the difference in sale price and regular price, the difference in profit dollars, and the difference in margin percent. And oh yeah, here's your markdown that you could expect based off of that forecast. Now, if you're one of those guys that thinks you're a math whiz, you can manually input the forecast too. Just highlight in the field and put in the number and hit enter. And you can see that the numbers will be updated right in front of your eyes. If you want to go back to what the system generated, just hit the generate button and you can see it will take us back to 40. So a couple things to note. This exercise that we went through is basically a simulation of what's going to happen with these three items through this date based on pricing events in the past that were similar to this right here. So what we're showing you is a forecast of the movement by item and then the impact on sales, revenue, and markdown right down here at the bottom. Now the good thing is, because we ran this simulation, we can store the data, and then when we get to June 9th, after the promotion is over, we can compare what we forecasted over here to what actually happened sales-wise, and then that will hopefully help us make better decisions down the road when we're creating our future sale pricing. Now another thing to note is you can see the page numbers over here. So when we created our future sale price batch, we indicated which page these three items were on. I just did a simple 1, 2, and 3. Using the data from this tool then can help you determine whether or not placement is a factor on the actual results of your promotions. And a final thing to note, although we used page numbers here, the easy 1, 2, and 3, you don't necessarily have to use this tool with a flyer. It could work on any future sale price or TPR price for that matter. Just put everything on page number 1 and use the tool to help generate forecasts and see the impact on your profit dollars and then on markdowns. So now you're probably asking yourself, where the heck do I put in that page number criteria when I'm creating my future sale prices? Well, this will be the last little tip I'll show you today. Under the batch menu, if you go to future sale, it's going to bring up the items, or at least the items that are in our current browser. And if you expand this window a little bit, you'll see this field down here called page number. Now if I drag this over here, and now I come over here and hit one of the other items, you'll see it moves over to page 2, page 3, and so on. And again, you don't necessarily have to use this with a flyer. You can use the page number field to help segregate the items and how you price them out, or just throw them all on one page and help the system use the data from the past to generate a forecast for upcoming events. Well, that's it for this week's tip. Hopefully we've given you a few ideas of what you can do with all the batch tools available within SMS Pro. Until next time, have a great day.